Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Suzy Rosenstein.
Hey there, welcome back to the podcast, Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am so glad to be with you here again for this week's episode, which is another interview in my series called Getting Real with Women in the Middle. Getting Real introduces you to real-life women in the middle who have made a big change and figured out how to love their midlife. Today's interview is not in my cedar closet. It's with my guest in her home in Toronto. In her kitchen, actually. And I mention this because you might hear a few unusual noises here and there. There might even be a sound that sounds a little bit like a smoke detector. No worries. It is just a pet African gray parrot named Congo. All right. Now, before we dive in, if this is your first episode of Women in the Middle, I'd just like to say how awesome it is that you found us and that you're here. Women in the Middle is about actionable life coaching for women in their 50s, designed to help with career boredom, career change, midlife crisis, transition, and empty nest issues, all from a mindfulness perspective. And the truth is, it doesn't really matter how old you are to get something out of this podcast, but lots of our examples and references will be related to midlife, this age and stage. What we're really doing is helping older and wiser women get excited about their lives again, because I know it's no surprise to you that getting older comes with a few bumps along the road. If you haven't done so yet, head over to www.suzyrosenstein.com/midlifefunk to grab your copy of my free ebook, 10 Surprisingly Simple Ways to Bust Out of Your Midlife Funk. This will totally get you going. While you're surfing around my website, you'll also see how to work with me. So if you are frustrated and stuck and know that it's time to make a change, but you aren't sure where or how to start, you should totally book a free 20-minute insight call and see how you can benefit from coaching with me. Just go to www.suzyrosenstein.com and hover over the About tab. You'll see free session on the drop-down menu. Click there and you can book straight into my calendar. It is super easy and I can't wait to see your name in there so we can connect. All right, ladies, let's get going. Today's Getting Real interview is with someone I'm really excited for you to meet. She's an orthopedic surgeon with the thriving Toronto medical practice by day and a performing and recording musician with a band at night. She has totally figured out how to add to her life so her profession doesn't consume her. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Jackie Auguste to the Women in the Middle podcast. Jackie, please tell me a bit about what was going on in your 40s.
My 40s? Oh my God. My 40s. So I just started my practice here in Toronto as an orthopedic surgeon, because when you go through school, med school, residency, fellowship, it takes for friggin' ever. So by the time you get through that, you're like 40. There isn't a guy, a girl, a frog, anybody who can get through medical school, residency, and fellowship who's not in their 40s, because that's how long it friggin' takes.
Wow.
So in my 40s, I had decided that now it was time to build my practice. All of my friends had already finished all of their undergrads, and they were like in business, in whatever other métier they were doing, and they had probably started already raising families, doing the things they wanted to do, buying houses, doing the mortgage, several mortgages. They were like on their third mortgage. And me, I was just like starting. So for me, I had already had a litter before I started med school, because I was early 20s when I had my first 2 kids. And then I waited until I was finished my fellowship. So that's the third thing you do becoming a doctor, before I started having my final litter, and I had another child. So I had 3 kids ranging, with a 14-year gap. And now I was building my practice, raising kids, being a single mom, because I was never good at relationships, and, working here in Toronto after growing up on a farm. So that was my 40s.
And where did you grow up? Where was this farm?
Camrose, Alberta.
And what's that near?
Nowhere. Like, seriously. So it's between Edmonton and Calgary, in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, so it was a small community?
Yeah, very small. So, but I am a 4th generation doctor in that community. But I did not want to stay there. I wanted to move, to a bigger city and have some more fun, do something interesting, and not just like be stuck in this whole thing that was like my birthright, where I would have to take over the same practice and sort of be in the same life that all of my forefathers had done. I was the first female that had been there. Everybody before me, the other 3 generations were all males, and I just thought, I love Camrose. It's my favorite place to be. But I wanted to bring my kids into a community where they would be able to do whatever they wanted. They wouldn't be just pigeonholed into doing figure skating and hockey and skiing, and that was it.
That's so interesting. And also I want to mention that when you were in your 40s, that's where we met.
That's right.
So Jackie and I met because we were both in a community band. So I played saxophone in a community band, and Jackie was over there wailing away on the drums, just about a foot behind me, maybe not even a foot.
I was behind her, being the heckler.
The heckler, and drummers, they're just loud.
I know. So we tried our best not to. Trust me.
So what's so interesting is that I have several clients who are physicians, and what you said is so true, that physicians, in order to get where you're going, you need to be super focused. You need to be a high overachieving type of person. And what typically happens is that with all of this focus, lives tend not to be quite as well-rounded. No. So when did you first start to think, I don't know if just being a physician is going to be enough?
Oh, very early. Pretty much right away. So I had this thing that I had goals. So in my 20s, I decided that I wanted to be some kind of professional. I wanted to have also been some kind of media person. So what I did is I decided that before I was 30, I wanted to get a degree, have children, own a house, and write a book. Oh, and I decided I want to have a TV show. All at the same time. On a cable channel about interviewing people about lifestyles, and I was like, yeah, I did everything. Woohoo! I'm good to go. And then I achieved that, and I was like, oh my God, now what?
So even early on, you knew that diving into medicine, while it must have been fulfilling, I mean, you are an orthopedic surgeon, for God's sake, it still wasn't enough, that you had this other side of you that was necessary. The
30s were like, for me, the 30s were like, okay, so you have to be part of the family tradition. So the family business for me is medicine. So as a 4th generation physician, I felt like I needed to do that. So I did all the things for myself in my 20s. And then when I became 30, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So I went to med school. Nobody goes to med school at 30. Nobody does that. I did it. I went to Calgary, for med school at 30, and I decided I was going to be a family doctor because I was too old to be a surgeon or anything that would take time, right?
Isn't that funny that it doesn't matter how old you are, that thought, I'm too old, can pop in and wreak havoc?
It does. I was 29 when I got into med school. I'm like, oh, I can only be a family physician because it's going to take 4 or 5 years. I'll be fine. If I'm going to do any specialty, it's going to take 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years. But as I got further into my training, I realized that I didn't want to be a family physician. I did not want to deal with runny noses and pap smears for the rest of my life. I'm telling you. I was like a technician. I wanted to break people's bones and recreate them. And I wanted to mold people into different, positions. And it just seemed like for me as an athlete at the time, the other thing that I could do was to be an orthopedic surgeon because I could fix people that are broken and give them more function. So I went through the whole thing, and I went through a long residency training program and a long fellowship, and I came out of that at 39, pregnant. Exactly. Like shit. Sorry.
It's okay.
Pregnant and...
Women in the middle can handle it.
Pregnant and with a whole bunch of letters behind my name and no job.
Wow.
No job.
So were you thinking about music yet, or did that come
I've always
later?
been a musician. Since I was 10 years old, I played the guitar. I never sang. I played the guitar, I played the piano, I played the drums, I played whatever. Whoever was the cool person in my life, I played that thing. I met a cool guy who played the sax, I played the sax. I met a cool guy who played the trumpet, I played the trumpet. I met a cool guy who played the drums, I played the drums. I mean, that was me. I was just like, well, that's cool, I can do it. And it's actually interesting because a lot of us as women, we are multi-talented, but we don't know it.
That's right.
But, we have all the wrong reasons for doing things.
It's the thinking. It's the thinking that gets in the way. You can't do this. You're too old to do that. That's
right.
too hard. You need to stay small. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. You can't
I can
put
just
yourself out.
be this. I can just be
Mm-hmm.
that. So even when I became an orthopedic surgeon, as like one of the only female surgeons in the friggin' country, all that I could say about myself is I can run across the parking lot in heels. I was like, I can run with the boys because I can run across the parking lot in friggin' high heels. And I forgot the fact that I was winning awards for science and I was winning awards for my research and I was like getting job interviews and I was doing all of this stuff as a female in an absolutely male-dominated community and still having blonde hair and being blue-eyed and not like getting my tubes tied. That's another story from a, let me tell you.
We'll do that on another one.
Yeah. And, becoming like a lesbian and all the things that you would have to do to not be a typical orthopedic surgeon. I was married, divorced, married again, 2 litters of kids, having been a professional figure skater and a skier, and then suddenly, being in my early 30s in this zone where now I have to start a practice. That's a business. I know nothing about business, right? Am I just going to let the guys direct everything I'm doing, or am I going to actually take control of this? And I didn't. I did not take control of it until I was 40.
Okay, so what is so interesting is that I hear so much creativity in everything that you say, creativity and goal setting. So it seems like those 2 parts of your personality have always been there. So then you get knee deep into your practice. You're a successful orthopedic surgeon in Toronto. And then the next thing I know, I see you on Facebook, you're performing. You're like, you've got a rock band. There's these amazing Facebook videos and live videos. You're recording, you've got albums, and you're doing concerts. So what happened in between, I'm building this practice, and now you're thriving, you're an out there, you're a musician who is making it as a musician. What was going on in your brain to make that giant leap?
I'll tell you, so like I was saying, at 30, I said, I have these goals to 30, and then I achieved them. I was like, what? Now what? Then I had some more goals at 40 that were totally professionally based around medicine. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this fellowship, I'm going to get this job, etc. And then suddenly it occurred to me that I was done. I have no more goals.
Wow.
No, really, I was done. So I got the job I wanted. I was an orthopedic surgeon in a really awesome hospital, the first fully digital hospital in North America. I had awesome patients. I had all the OR time. I could do whatever surgery that I wanted to do. I was highly trained. And I was like, I'm cool. Yeah, I'm cool. And I'm going to say this, from a guy's perspective, I'd be like, yeah, I rock. But I was like, I am so unhappy.
Wow.
Like, I just whatever. Like, I've done everything my dad wanted me to do, my grandfather wanted me to do, my mother wanted me to do. And here I am. Okay, so great.
So your funk looks a little different than a lot of the midlife funk that many of my clients want to talk to me about. Your funk was not, you weren't as confused, I think, as many of my clients are. My clients are very frustrated about goals they haven't yet achieved. And what you're talking about is you were very highly motivated, very focused, very goal-oriented. You achieved a lot of goals, and now what?
And now what? So I was so unhappy doing everybody else's goals for me. So I did the family business. I did what everybody expected me to do. I ticked the boxes. So my mother used to say, check, check, check. Let's go to Tahiti. Check. Let's go to Hawaii. Check. She went to the base camp of friggin' Everest. I haven't been there, but she was like this, right? She's passed away, but she was like this. Check. I've been to the Wall of China. Check. I've not, but she was. So that was my mother, ticking my boxes. So I got to the point where, okay, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I have a job. it's like being tenured as a professor.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I'm great. So now what? Well, I'm like 39 years old. What do you do? And I realized that the one thing that I was missing in my life was all the artsy stuff that's my thing.
Oh, and so many of my clients talk to me about that.
I'm
so
an artsy
many of
person.
them.
I'm an artist.
You're clearly an artist.
I'm not a scientist. I did shit in physics. Like, really bad. I don't even know how I made it into med school, to be honest.
Somehow you did.
I know. I do not need physics to be an orthopedic surgeon.
So do you remember when you kind of went, you know what, this artsy, creative piece is not as present in my life as I need it to be? Do you remember it?
When I moved to Toronto, immediately. So when I was in Calgary, I had a TV show. I was writing for The Sun, The Star. I was writing freelance stuff on medical things. That was my background. And I was having fun, I was doing a lot of things that were sort of out of the box. And every once in a while, they would ask me to do something that was totally not medical. And I would be, hosting a Klondike Days parade or something, just something fun, right?
Klondike, I don't even know what Klondike is.
Whatever. It's an Edmonton thing. It's like the Stampede in Calgary.
Oh,
it's the
okay.
Edmonton thing.
Okay, got it.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. Or I started modeling. Oh my God, I modeled late. So many crazy things. But these are all arty things, artsy things. So I was 39. I'm like, all those artsy things I like to do, drawing and singing and making songs and like all this shit. It was not happening because I was doing what I was supposed to do, which was being a doctor, which I enjoyed. Like, I really enjoyed it. It's a great job, and I still do it, and I'm not going to leave it. But there's not a lot of art in it, although orthopedic surgery has some art in the sense that you're reconstructing and recreating somebody's functional abilities, but it's kind of a stretch. So I was like, okay, so what's the one thing I'm missing? And I sat down one day, and I was like, just before I met you, and I sat down one day, what am I missing? I'm missing music. I've always been a musician.
So you actually identified it.
Music.
Yeah.
Was it? I was done with all of the physical stuff. I did not want to be a model, an actress. That was not anything that was really interesting to me. Some of that happened just by accident, but I never ever was interested in it. But I've always been a musician. So I was like, okay, let me try this out. So one of my assistants, which was our, bandmate, he said, well, come to our band and play the drums. The drums, which is like my eighth instrument. It's not my thing. So I started as an oboist, a flautist, saxophonist, all these other things, and suddenly I'm a drummer. So that was like the last thing I'd ever done.
Wow.
And I'm like, cool, that's fine.
She sounded so good. I mean, she was less than a foot behind me. I couldn't
fun.
help but listen.
Drumming I'm telling you, I met a guy in high school and he was cute and I learned how to play the drums.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those drummers.
No. A lot of what we do as females, I'm sorry to say, are based on, the guys we like, the girls we like, the people that we look up to. And it might not just be a female thing. I think we're all like that.
It's funny where the ideas come from.
Yeah, like from wherever. Anyways, and then I started in the Thornhill Community Band, and we did that for many years together.
Yeah,
right?
we did it. Mm-hmm.
And played all over the place, the Tuesday night thing. And then I realized that I was missing the part of me that was a true musician the way that I saw it. I didn't want to just be a drummer for a concert band.
Yeah, it was a concert band, so we would have sheet music and we would do the nursing home tour and we would play like for Canada Day at a community venue. But it wasn't jazz and it wasn't improvising.
Yeah, these are awesome. They're awesome and they're fun.
Yeah.
Like super fun. But you're playing somebody else's music.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not creating your own music. You're not getting in there and directing anything. You're not sort of the director of your own art. So I was like, okay, I'm leaving. And we started our own group. So
Who is we? Okay, you know how many people come up with an idea to have a band in a garage when you're 16? Most people in their 40s who have busy medical practices do not say, you know what, I think I need to start a band.
was fortunate in the fact that my husband is a drummer and a guitar player, has Andy, and one of my best friends, who's one of our co-physicians over at Humber, is a keys player who also plays like banjo and guitar and everything. So we started a band called Across the Board because it really was. It was like people from like a crazy cross section. My daughter's friends, our friends, people from work. It was ages that ranged from 19 at the time to like 60. And so we called it Across the Board. And we started a YouTube channel and we started doing these pick up and play covers. And then we started writing our own music and it just snowballed from there.
So I'm going to pause here for a second because I want Jackie to introduce one of her songs, and it's going to, we'll just lead right into it. So which song do you want to feature on the podcast?
So this is a song off of our newest EP called Amends. It's called Don't Drag Me Down, and it was featured on the International Women's Day website in 2017.
Awesome. So enjoy this song and then we'll finish the interview just after. All right, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing it. I'm so glad I have this included on the podcast. All right, so now you pull together this band Across the Board, and you have a mix of people who've never played together before. Now again, you don't just decide to keep it in the garage or to keep it in the basement studio. You take it out and you start performing. Tell me a little bit about that.
So that was scary.
It sounds scary.
Yeah, because I have always been a performer in the sense of figure skating or being in the OR, whatever. There's always with us, right, with Thornhill Community Band, there's always been a performance element. But when you become the lead singer in a band that you are playing, where you wrote the music, it's like, oh my God, does anybody even know what I'm doing? Is this good? Do they like it? Is it relevant? Is it up to date?
Talk about mind chatter.
In the 60s? I was born in the late 60s. Is that where I am now? And
so you're smack dab in the middle. You just turned 50 this year.
I did. So I'm right in the middle.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so it's one thing. I mean, it's no surprise that you had doubt. When most of us have doubt, even if we're not doing something new. But what's so interesting is that these thoughts create feelings. So I wonder how you overcame all of this doubt and questioning to continue to move forward, because you are happening, my friend.
I'm going to take it back to when I was like 14. I learned this at 14. This is not something new. I learned this at 14. And this is not something that you need to learn when you're 14. You can learn this at any age. But I learned this at 14. So picture this. There is a stadium of 1,000 people around you and a cold sheet of ice. And you are in a skimpy skating dress and tights and little skates, and you're shivering. And you skate out into the middle, and there's judges on the side and all these people staring at you, and it's quiet, like silent, like dead silent. And you're waiting for your music to start, and you're in some kind of pose before you're going to take off and do 4 minutes of a crazy program that you may fall, you may forget, you may just totally break a leg in the sense of actually physically breaking a physical bone. And you're waiting for your music to start, and there's nothing, there's silence. And all these people are looking at you, and it's cold, and you're half naked. Think about that for about 10 seconds.
I'm sweating.
And then the music starts. And the music is fast. And you have to be on beat. So you can't wait. You have to start with the start of the music. So that feeling before my music started on the ice at the age of 14 is the most stressful thing that can ever happen to me ever in my life. And that's the same thing that happens before we start playing on stage, before I start a total hip replacement, before I walk down an aisle of some sort of thing that I have to do a speech at, before this camera turns on, before this thing recorder turns on, it's the same thing.
And what's the thought that you practice thinking to propel you forward?
There's two. I could either fucking run away, or I can say, okay, just try me. here we go.
So just try me.
Just try me. I'm here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I do.
So that's a really powerful thought, because it obviously,
bring it on.
You rise to the challenge and you go.
Bring it on.
So how many years has it been now since you've been performing and recording?
So 2013, we started our YouTube channel. We stayed in the basement for a couple of years. The only performing that I was doing was as a drummer for you behind your chair for many years. Band. And then in about 2016, we had written our own songs and we started gigging, and we got featured at Canadian Music Week. We did a Canadian tour. We got a couple of international music awards for indie songs, and so we're at our third album now that's coming out in April.
So where can people find you? Of course, I'll put all the links in the show notes. But
acrosstheboardmusic.ca. You can see everything there.
Wow. I mean, as Jackie is going through this list of things that she's doing, I mean, if you're watching the video, you can see that I'm kind of just, my jaw's dropping. On podcast, you can't see it, but this kind of stuff would scare me half to death. But what is so important is that you recognize that you weren't fulfilled, and you figured out what you needed and you did it anyway. And that is really the core of the podcast. With Women in the Middle, we get to a certain age and stage. Sometimes it's stage, sometimes it's age. But we have this feeling that life is passing me by, that if I don't make a change, I may have regrets, that sort of thing. And you recognize that music was missing, and you did something that is like completely unbelievable to most people. It's one thing just to write. It's another thing just to record. But to perform, it's just crazy. So I'm wondering what advice you could give to other women in the middle out there who have an idea that seems far-fetched, but that they recognize that they think they need to move in that direction.
So it's actually quite simple. Who do you see yourself being as the ultimate, absolute pinnacle of your life? You want to be a rock star. You want to be a well-known podcaster who's a guru in something like yourself. You want to be an award-winning writer. You want to be a reality show host. You want to be the best mother. You want to be the best daughter. You want to be the best daycare owner, the best business owner, an entrepreneur who people ask for advice. It just could be anything. It could be you want to be the best seamstress. You want to be the best cook. Like, it doesn't have to be something on the society level of awesome. It could be just what you think you want to be. It could be, I want to be the person who makes the best lasagna in the world. So write that on the top of a page and then just start doing it. Just be that person.
Oh my gosh, that is such good advice.
Just
that
be
it's
it.
really in the doing. It's the doing that most of us get these ideas and we don't even take the baby step.
No.
But what you're talking about is really thinking about your future self. And what advice would you give your future self if another year rolled around, if 5 more years rolled around, and you still weren't doing that thing, even a baby step in that direction? Yeah. That's where regrets come from.
The baby steps are simple. Just start Googling who these people are that do the thing that you want to do. And then look at their history. How did they do it? And then just copy them. It's simple. It's not hard. There's a million people that have done that before you. Just keep doing what they're doing. So Tony Robbins says, if you don't like the state you're in, just be the state you want to be. Just
so good.
Friggin' change it. You're unhappy, you're depressed, you feel like you're in a funk. What would a person feel like who's not in a funk? And then just flip and just be that for a moment.
Oh, I love it. That's such good advice. So I would like to ask you, is there anything that you would like to promote?
Oh, no, not really. I just want to promote you.
Oh,
awesome.
My God, you're the best. Well, I would like to share you guys, and I'll put it in the show notes. Jackie and I have had the best morning together. We've done something that she does regularly on her Facebook page, which is called Kitchen Sessions. So we've been cooking together, and there will be video of it. And in the intermissions of the cooking, and today we made matzo ball soup.
We did.
And
I can't wait to eat it because we've been waiting.
So there's live music in the middle of the cooking. It's so much fun. So I will include that link in the show notes. I encourage you guys to check Jackie out. She is happening across the board, is amazing. And I just want to thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your story with Women in the Middle. One thing we know for sure is that we are not alone. We have to stick together. We have to learn from each other. And your story is so unusual and so inspiring. So that's it for this episode. If you like what you've heard, just head over to Women in the Middle podcast on iTunes and leave me a review. Check out the show notes with more information and links at www.suzyrosenstein.com. Jackie, will you come back another time?
Oh, for sure. But you have to come back in my kitchen.
I will. We're absolutely
and bring your saxophone.
Oh my gosh,
She's a musician. She won't tell you this, but she's a musician. I'm going to force her to fulfill the musical part of her. Whatever. What do you call it?
It's my passion.
That's right.
My passion project.
Exactly.
Oh, it's so
Her
funny
passion
because
project.
with this podcast, I always sign off by saying, let's do one scary thing at a time, or let's do one exciting thing at a time, that we're only one thought away from doing these things. So Jackie just scared me half to death. So let's do this, ladies, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening.
Awesome. Bye, guys.